I think that life is a bit chaotic and maybe,
And not in the fun way.
and not in the fun way, like not in the Nikki burns down New York way.
Or
It's
Chicago.
or Chicago, like
You like made a tornado happen. Like,
I did not,
dude.
did I? I was asleep during the actual tornado, apparently. So it's like, Nikki, what did you get into in Chicago? It's like,
What didn't I?
I don't
Do you
want to talk.
remember GAC? I was covered in it.
So normally people might know us for like chaos, like for the three people who have watched every episode and now they're here and they've been looking forward to seeing what's next. Normally we're just straight chaos, but life has been a lot lately. Like there's just too much chaos. And we do love comic books. And
Mm-hmm.
so today is going to be a little bit more of sort of like comic book therapy. Adair, are you ready to go record an episode of Vault Crashers?
Yeah, why not? Thanks for asking for consent.
Let's go.
Welcome to Vault Crashers, a show dedicated to kicking down the vault door to help you find something you'll fall in love with. Our mission, our creed, our code is this: to share our passion for Vault comics in a way that it makes them approachable and accessible to everyone. We want you to find a comic book or graphic novel you'll fall in love with. My name is Adair. My pronouns are she, her.
My name is Nikki, pronouns they, them. So this month we are going to talk about the Blue Flame. Spoiler alert now for those who haven't read it,
There's
because
literally no way to talk about it further without spoiling
yeah, like
something.
there's like we already like started with some feels. We got some feels, but also I'm going to go ahead and say trigger warning.
Oh
The
yeah.
Blue Flame is pretty intense at times, and it starts in the first issue. I don't even know which triggers, but I like
I mean, yeah, there's triggers of like abuse, shooting,
drug
alcohol,
abuse, like
yeah, drug
alcoholism.
abuse, alcoholism, survivor's guilt, all sorts of things.
Like, go to your therapist. Like, if you're watching this now, like, pause, call your therapist, um, get an appointment.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean I'm not saying anything bad about this book by saying go to your therapist. What I'm saying is it's an intense one that actually made me have a lot of self-reflection. But The Blue Flame is one of those titles in Vault's catalog that it feels a bit unexpected. And honestly, the first time looking at it, if you look at the cover, you just think soups, like we're superheroes, which really doesn't fit into what we normally expect for Vault. But The Blue Flame is really about a blue collar guy named Sam. He works as an HVAC repairman in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Hi, I live in Wisconsin right now, so that's
Yeah,
also
I
that's
wrote about a bunch of notes about like ask Nikki how true to life this is.
like I'm not from here, but Wisconsin, like once you've lived here as long as I've been here, you're like, Wisconsin. Yeah.
Like I know things.
I know like you just once you know things about Wisconsin, you're like, you know things. And then you
Whether or
ask
not you
people.
want to keep that information, not
That's
sure.
a whole we won't talk about cheese curds today, but maybe we will. Who knows? It's the beginning of the episode. So Sam is this HVAC guy. He's also a vigilante doing crime fighting shit on the side until a tragedy like uproots his life and his sense of self and identity. And throughout this entire series, we get to watch him unpack the trauma. It's a very grounded story, and yet it like exists in this cosmic world where Sam has to defend humanity in a trial. Basically, like, are humans worth it? And
Which is a really, this is such an apt comic for what is happening currently. If we look at the trans legislations that are happening in different states, and also like just gun control as a whole, looking at what's just been happening in Tennessee lately, I feel that it's unfortunately, I wish there was a time in our lives that it wasn't topical, but it feels real topical right now.
I wish I knew. I don't know off the top of my head when this comic came out, like the first issue.
Mm.
But there's always like this like time between when comics are pitched and when they come out, and I really wish I knew that. I don't know that.
Maybe just edit in right here the release date of Blue Flame issue 1.
Yeah, I don't know. I just remember how I felt when I first saw it.
But that Blue Flame issue 1 and all the other subsequent Blue Flames were written by Christopher Cantwell, artist Adam Gorham, colors by Kurt Michael Russel, not that Kurt Russell, and letters by Hassan Ostmane Elhaou. Dan, I was so excited to pronounce something, and then I got distracted.
We're gonna get this name.
We will get this name. No, we got it. So, but if I know you've probably noticed at this point, you know, Dan's not here. But if you need that dose of Dan,
Damn. What the fuck is my cat doing over there? You can lick my entire ass.
Dan, we miss you.
Dan, you are in our thoughts.
We love you. Thank you for
trusting us to go on air without you.
Yes.
He normally has he has like a little buzzer when we're being inappropriate. You edit it out, but
yeah, nobody ever sees that. It's just a buzz buzz buzz, and it, yeah, you don't that kind of sound. Never mind.
Yeah, let's not.
We're not gonna go there. Let's
beverages.
Anyway. Normally we have like beverages that are associated with whatever comic. We come up with some sort of creative way to tie them.
There's honey on my fingers. I didn't realize there was honey.
Adair is now sticky, so this is great. Adair, what are we doing for drinks this month?
Well,
I guess this is a monthly
I don't know about
thing.
you, Nikki, but I'm hydrating my poor little body that is feeling so many feelings. So I am drinking out of my science fiction writer Nalgene, and I'm drinking some tea that apparently has honey in it, from my Zabar's mug. I'm not gonna shake this one, but
Don't shake.
Now, what about you, Nikki? My finger is so sticky.
I'm drinking water from a mason jar because I don't own regular glasses.
Nor should you.
No, normally I feel like I want to call it a Wisconsin thing, but it's not. They're like the adult sippy cup.
Yeah.
I don't think so. I just made that up.
I like that.
But it's gonna work.
So Blue Flame. Blue Flame. Nikki, let's talk about the panels that we really enjoy, because like we're trying to keep some semblance of order here. So let's talk about that before we just unpack trauma. And we're not going to call it trauma dumping. It is our lore.
It's not trauma dumping. It's our lore. We're going to start with panels though. So the panel I have, normally it's like favorite panel. This is the panel that when I was doing my recent reread that hit. So I can't call it like a favorite, like an all-time favorite.
It's the one that hit hardest.
It's the one that hit hardest. And I think that's actually, it says a lot about this comic. It's actually the first page of issue 4. And for me, like pulling up that panel again now so I can look at it while I describe why it gives me feels. Issue 4 and issue 5 were fairly intense for me. Kurt Michael Russel, not that Kurt Russell. The colors on this panel are absolutely brilliant. And I guess like, I mean, we've already said sort of spoiler alert. That first page is a flashback. And it feels like a hazy, I've been drinking and I've been sitting next to a tombstone and reflecting on my survivor's guilt flashback. Because that's what it is. The colors are absolutely wonderful, and the line work and the facial expressions and the absolute pain. We mentioned there's like a trigger warning for a shooting. In that first issue, there is a mass shooting, and Sam, I want to say he's our hero, but I think that's kind of the point, is what does it mean to be a hero?
Yeah, our
Um,
protagonist.
yeah, our
that dude whose story we're watching, reading.
that Wisconsinite HVAC repairman who has survivor's guilt and a lot of other shit going on. It's like this, like you remember it and what you hold on to. And my background for this is also the cover of that issue, and there's like a bullet hole through his visor, and incredibly painful and visceral about this page. And there's that sort of theme of it being incredibly grounded, and then you have these moments of intense, like, I need to call my therapist, or I'm having a lot of feels right now, or wow, they managed to evoke something in me that I really needed to reflect on. I felt that with this panel when I was rereading it in the last week. And honestly, and the colors, like the color work is amazing, but like I'm a sucker for facial expressions as well, and it feels incredibly painful. And we will do a little bit more trauma dumping on that later. Do we want to just go into your panel before trauma dumping starts?
Let's do that. And
let's
then
do that.
then we'll do a trauma dumping.
It's not trauma dumping, it's lore.
Lore warning, a lorning. Anyway, so
laughing. I shouldn't be laughing at anything.
It's all dark.
Dark humor.
Just dark sadness. So I think that it's interesting that you bring up that your panel. I had a lot of feelings about that, and I think just the idea of like bullet holes through like masks, or like blood coming down from under a mask, is just this it's a really, really visceral image in any kind of comic where you look at something that seems like it should be so protected, but it shows how vulnerable being a human is. And on that note, just thinking about like, there's not really a way to talk about this series as a whole and how like just I feel about it and what I was thinking when I was watching it. Why did I say watching it? Reading.
I want to call them episodes, like issues, episodes all the time.
This is the zeitgeist of our generation, apparently. Anyway, controversial opinion. The first panel, that like first imagery of him falling through space was, and you really don't know what to expect when you're reading that first panel. You have to like, and also looking at Vault as a whole to see like a superhero comic and all of this stuff is just, it's a lot to process, and it can be very confusing. But that image and how it sets up the story is really not as much like, oh, this is a superhero comic, but it was that being alive is very, very lonely. And that it is such a lonesome image, and it's just this it sets this tone of hopelessness, which you see be a steady theme through this entire series, and then ending with a moment that could be hopeful and also could not be. It's hard, and it's about what you believe and who you believe, and if you believe your delusions versus your reality. And also how I kind of was relating to it this most recent reading is it reminded me a lot of Pan's Labyrinth, is your imagination or your coping mechanism to get through trauma, and creating this other world. And that just like really hit me. And that's how I feel about this panel.
I almost chose the same panel as you, like, because there's that panel when you first open this comic and you're like, what am I about to read? And if you're still here and you haven't read the entire thing,
just read the first page. Clearly you got that's it.
Yeah. But getting to that last page is a journey. And when you compare the last page of the Blue Flame, issue 10, last page, to that first one, and especially with what you just said, Adair, like that loneliness and how lonely it is to be alive. And the last page of this story it's about hope. It's about rebirth, because it's birth. Like it's something that is joyful to. I'm trying to remove my cynicism from that.
Yeah,
Like
yeah. It's
it's
societally that is such a
symbol.
celebration.
Yeah, it's a celebration of life. And when Sam, he's faced with this crisis, like this fucking tragedy of death. I think it was like 24 people who were killed in a shooting, and he has survivor's guilt. And you find that out in the first issue after looking at this panel that you referenced. And you're like, what the fuck what is happening? What is about to happen? And you look at that very last panel on the last page of this series, and now I'm trying not to have feels. Wow, this
Yeah,
is
I
really
know.
hard.
It's really hard.
You look at that, and throughout this in particular, like this story, I had moments of like, is it a delusion to find happiness in survivor's guilt? Especially when there's a lot of alcoholism and drug abuse as a coping mechanism for Sam, but also you're kind of thrown into this world where you're like, it's a cosmic world. It's still like he's out in space and he's on trial. Like he's been tasked with, is humanity worth saving? And I never really paused to understand like why that's happening, because for me, I fixate so much on this thing about survivor's guilt and how we cope with that, and what does hope look like in a very lonely, sad world when you're a survivor of a tragedy. But looking at that, and it's like, is humanity worth saving? And he's out with aliens, like trying to defend, is Earth worth saving? Is humanity worth saving? And the very last panel is rebirth. It's joy. It's a symbolism for growth and renewal. Is it real?
Yeah, and I think it is also this, it's such a transformative ending to a story, in that like there's constant obstacles, both celestial and earthbound, that all the characters are going through and processing, and you have to look at as a whole, looking at the obstacles that they face throughout this series. I believe it's 10 issues. I believe it's 10 issues.
So double check.
Do you choose to like sink in the hopelessness of these obstacles, or do you create a moment out of that and create growth out of that? And I was thinking about that just sort of in the wrap up kind of element of the final issue as well, because they kind of answer a few questions about how things are going to happen. But it's a really, it's an interesting thing. And again, I'm going to relate to Pan's Labyrinth, that moment when the main character dies, but like she's reunited with her parents at that point. And that can be both a very hopeful ending, or it can be a very sad ending if you think that this has just all been a delusion and that she just dies. And so it's an interesting thing in how you want to like interpret those final frames too, because I think it does feel like it is up for interpretation. And I want to, of course, believe it just at face value, but I would be remiss to not unpack that.
I think for me, the first time I read this all the way through, because the first time I picked up issue 1, I had to put it down at the end, and pause for a while. I was like, the first time I was like, yes, there's hope. I take it at face value. And then I go back to it and I'm like, look, let me look at where I am right now and be real.
Yeah.
I don't know. And I know the writer has their, like, when they're writing something, they have their own approach, their own idea to how it ends. I think one of the beautiful things about the Blue Flame is it's so easy to project and process your trauma in this character. Maybe especially if you're from Wisconsin. I don't know.
I would have to ask you about all the accuracies of the of the snowfall and such for that.
I don't live in Milwaukee.
Madison's a different game, man.
Madison's like a whole different place. It is snowing right now.
Seriously? Oh man, it's like sunny. I have my curtain drawn because it's really bright.
It was 80 degrees yesterday, and I was like overnight I was sweating in bed because I was like, it's too fucking warm and I don't want the AC cranked. And now it's fucking snowing. I don't know.
Climate change is real.
Climate change is real. It's a hot mess over here in Wisconsin.
Not just because you live there.
No, it's not me. It's been like I've only been here for 9 years. And
jeez, I did not realize you've been there that long.
Okay.
I'm sorry. Jeez.
I was in Texas for I was in Alabama for 3 to 4 years. I don't quite know. And I've been here since 2014, and I am turning 37 this year. So like math people, if you want to know how long I lived in Texas, do some math.
Figure out that math lore.
Yeah, it's actually like pretty easy now that I'm thinking about it, but I'm
subtract.
Yeah, I've just challenged everybody else to do it. Look, I'm wearing like weird hacker gloves and I'm very tired and I'm drinking water.
All right, well, let's go to bed then, and then we can discuss this in the morning.
No, we're done. That's it. That's the end of the episode.
I will say you made an interesting point though, where I love when I think really any comic has this potential, but I love the comics that really you can come back to it a lot of different times, and depending on your feelings, where you're at in life, like just even what way you're reading it, I feel like you can interpret it so many different ways. And I feel like Blue Flame is really special because I feel like I've read something different in it. And I think there's some that it's a little bit harder to do it with, but this one just feels very open for that interpretation based on what you were sort of saying, where you are at, like where you're coming at it from.
I think for me, that panel that I chose, one of the reasons it was so powerful is because the next panel talks about somebody that Sam loved, but I think it's in issue 1. I don't remember which page, where he's talking to Zola. Yeah, and it's like she's trying to admit love for him and like get him to be honest and say what he feels. Like basically it's just a relationship, right? They're trying to be totally honest and communicate, and he essentially says he's a flawed person, and that relationship, like, oh, it'll never start almost because I'm a flawed human being. And the panel I chose, it's like you're remembering this really hard moment of, I mean, he watches Zola die. Like Zola dies in this shooting in front of him, and he's got survivor's guilt. And on that next panel, like he's sitting at her grave and reflecting on the names of everybody who died in that shooting. And you reflect on like what could have been. What did I not say? And for me, right now where I am in my life, I'm like really struggling with communicating my feelings to people. And it's like, what could I say? I don't know what tomorrow brings. And that's why it really, I've been feeling that and living in that. So I look at it and I'm like, holy fuck, that's it. Like that moment right there. And I'm still stuck because I can read that and I'll, maybe hopefully tomorrow after talking about this and then knowing it's going to be online, maybe I will unstick myself. But it is that thing of like, where are you in that moment? You're going to find something in here that hits. It's also very beautiful. Like I like really? the lettering is great. Like the color, like there's so much about this that makes it a wonderful read. Enjoyable visually, like everything. But I mean, keeping it real, Adair and I both got a lot of sads and stuff.
Yeah, we just want to have a warm hug.
Need a
I'm not saying that this is that, but at least it is maybe putting a cold bucket of water over you to revitalize your senses.
It's comic book therapy, and therapy is hard because you got to face your shit to heal, and nobody talks about that part of therapy.
I'd really like us to have right now a little like theme song. It's comic book therapy with Nikki and Adair.
We're not therapists.
But we therapize.
Therapy's expensive. And we're free.
So, and comics are only $4.99
each. But the trade, which is coming out, is probably less than 20 for.
Which is exciting.
This story was a risk for Vault.
Definitely.
I think it's a risk for any company.
I mean, but specifically based on the titles that had come out prior, I feel like it was a risk.
And it was a risk. It's very different. And I hope that Vault continues to explore this idea of dismantling the superhero world and making it this sort of grounded story.
Yeah.
Even
relatable superheroes.
Relatable superheroes who.
You're everyman.
You're everyman. You're HVAC blue collar person in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. And
he doesn't want oat milk in his coffee.
They don't know what it's Dairyland. They don't know what oat milk is here. That's Wisconsin. That's like, and cheese curds. We don't know what oat milk
custard.
is. Custard. Yeah, like Culver's frozen custard. It's delicious. I wish I didn't have a whole dairy thing.
Yeah, I'm like, it sounds great, but I think it would hurt my tummy.
Yeah,
and that's my slogan.
I think it would hurt my tummy.
The more you know.
I was thinking the exact same thing. The more you know about Adair.
No one wants to know anything about me.
No, like everybody is already like
sold myself well.
Everybody is logged off already.
Like, nope. I'm just canceling YouTube as a concept at this point.
That's fine. Like everyone needs to go outside and touch some grass. Okay? Touch some grass.
Sounds like a drug slogan.
I'm gonna smoke some grass after this, so
cool. Well, let's shit's sad, man. But I feel like we have things to look forward to at Vault.
Try to make that transition. So happy, and this is where we are. Look, y'all, it's been a day. It's been a
life. It's been 2023.
My hacker gloves and I are.
You're like really into these.
I hate them, and I just like keep noticing them. And
that was a big yawn.
It's because I just want to pat your head. It's a big yawn. You just start like licking your lips like he's a big yawn. It's your bedtime. Oh, it's bedtime. What is going on? Oh man.
But I can tell you that Mindset is out. The full trade paperback is out on June 7th. If you have not checked out our Mindset episode, you should give it a listen. We got to talk to both the writer and the artist. And Queen of Swords, Hell to Pay, issue 4 are both also going to be out on the 7th or on the 31st. On the 31st for those two. Queen of Swords and Hell to Pay, issue 4, they will be available on the 31st. And you should check out our Barbaric episode that we did back in January. And then also we'll have some more fun Barbaric content coming very soon.
Mm-hmm. And then Money Shot comes again. While I was at C2E2, I did talk to Tim Seeley, the writer. And what a lot of Money Shot comes again deals with is this idea of like who owns what intellectual property. But it's also horny because it's Money Shot. It's called Money Shot. If you were there for wholesome PG content, I don't know what the fuck you were thinking.
Why you're at Vault.
Yeah, I actually, yeah, Vault ain't it. Like, go to Wonderbound. Like, go check out the Wonderbound.
That's the Wonderbound times.
Yeah, like that's the wrong.
This is not making fun of Wonderbound. We like Wonderbound.
We love Wonderbound, but that, like,
Yeah.
everyone,
This is not that.
Wonderbound is not the rest of Vault's catalog.
Yeah.
So yeah, if you will, like, show up expecting not horny to Money Shot, I don't know what you're doing, but I did
It's
talk
called
to
Money
Tim.
Shot.
I know, like, people should. And also, I love that anytime somebody says Money Shot, like, people say that to me a lot. We don't need to unpack that. I just think of Vault comics, so
Oh yeah.
we don't need to unpack any of that, actually.
I'm really excited to see what's in store with that interview with Tim Seeley.
Mhm.
I'm excited for it. It'll be fun.
I will say this, that I didn't ask him all the questions I wanted to ask because I was at his table in Artist Alley, and all of a sudden there were children. And
That's the worst.
exactly. See the last page of Blue Flame and reinterpret that comment. It's all how
Oops.
you approach it. No, there were children starting to show up, and Tim was great because he was drawing, like, he was working on something, drawing, and it was like boobs and butts, and
Boobs
so
and butts
I'm
and
like,
boobs and butts and boobs and butts and boobs and butts and yeah.
it was perfect. They were great. And so he's drawing, and I'm talking to him about Money Shot and like sex and comics, and then there are like children coming up, and I'm like, anyway, I'm gonna wrap this up. Because I had a question where I was like, I'm uncomfortable.
How do you
in there.
feel about tentacle tickles?
How did you know that was my question?
I don't know.
I'm
You
gonna
left your Google Docs open.
Oh shit. Okay. Wow. I meant to keep that private.
Woo-hoo.
I share a lot with Adair.
That's true.
It's a hive mind, actually.
Yeah. It is. So any last feelings to close out on Blue Flame?
I will read it again in the future, and I will have a whole different perspective and set of feelings about it, no matter what. It forces some self-reflection. It makes me think about certain things I've experienced in my life that are kind of traumatic, specifically like a shooting and things like that. So I feel like every time I read it, I really hope that I'm in a different place and that there will be a lot of growing. And no matter what, every time I read it, I'm going to appreciate the art and the colors. And Hassan's lettering is, I don't know, I feel like I could go on a whole thing about him. Like he also did the lettering of Mindset.
Yeah.
And it's just like this whole new level of art, and it brings so much to the comic. We didn't talk about that too much, but I could talk about Hassan all day long because their work is fantabulous. Adair, last thoughts?
Agreed. It brought me joy and existential dread.
Yeah, that's basically what hope is all about. You can't, like, you need the existential dread to really appreciate the hope. I am not the person for motivational quotes today. Are we ending this episode?
I think I need some Indian food.
You need Indian food. I need water.
It's like my comfort food.
What's
I'm
your
almost done
favorite?
with this now, Bean.
What's
But I love their coconut curry with any sort of protein. Like this one place that's in our neighborhood. It's so good.
your...
And then there's this eggplant dish we get too. I can't remember what it's called.
So instead of the like, what's your favorite sandwich, which one day we will ask Dan to explain why that question is in every interview.
Yeah, that will be his lore.
That's his, yeah. But instead of that, right now, it's real quick. It's like, what's your favorite Indian food dish?
Yeah.
And I don't have an answer for that. I will eat pounds of naan.
It'll house that none, and it'll be none of our business.
It's none of your business. But my favorite Indian dish.
Yeah, I think
is-
Scott actually made that joke today. It's pretty
Okay,
common.
wow. All right. I like butter chicken a whole lot. Okay,
Yeah.
that's what I got. Guess I'll hit and record.
I
Thank
can't
you.
feel my feet.
Did you say you can't feel your feet?
Yeah.
Are
They're,
they
like,
there?
tingly. They're probably in a different, like, celestial plane, trying to legislate things for why human beings deserve to live.
So what would your feet say to that?
There's,
Ask your feet, please. Do human beings deserve to live?
there's so many orthotics, and we're polluting the oceans.
Okay, thanks for joining us on Vault Crashers for another episode. I don't know what just happened for the last however long we've been fucking around and finding out. Good night, or good morning, or good afternoon. Thanks for joining us.